Hello, it is 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition. For tonight headlines, we have a commercial and financial hub in the fight against money laundering and terrorism. Ambassador Ayed Mus'ad Yahya echoes the conscience of UNESCO. For the international scene, Egypt confirms that humanitarian aid will be able to enter the Gaza Strip. Welcome to our newsroom. A virtual meeting between members of the government and the chair of the GAFIMON was held today at the Djibouti Palace Kempinski as part of the mutual evaluations of the Republic of Djibouti. A high-level virtual meeting was held under the auspices of the Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, and between the government and the chairman of the GAFIMON, an institution of which our country has been a member since 2008. The Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, took part in a meeting attended by senior officials, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and the Minister of Interior, Saeed Nuh Hassan, the Minister of Trade, the Governor of the Central Bank, the Attorney General of the Republic, and the President of the Chamber of Commerce, among others. The level of commitment reflects the importance attached by the highest decision maker in the state to this mutual evaluation, which is vital for our country as it strives to become a regional commercial and financial hub. The mutual evaluations to which each member country is invited to submit enables it to measure the effectiveness of its laws and institutions in the faces of the triple threat of money laundering, terrorism financing, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. For his part, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, said that the Financial Action Task Forces on Money Laundering and the Terrorist Financing, which is an international agency, drew up 40 recommendations that constitute international standards in the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing. Before launching the mutual evaluation process, the country being evaluated conduct a self-assessment known as national risk assessment to take stock of its system. In his speech, the Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, reiterated the Republic of Djibouti's determination to achieve regional integrations, underlining the fact that we are located on one of the world's main shipping lanes and remain a haven of peace and stability in a particularly troubled regions where terrorism and other forms of organized transnational crimes are rife. It highlights our ambition to transform our country into the secure financial center capable of preventing and suppressing all forms of economic crimes, and the idea that since we joined it, a great deal of work has been done in 2021, and in accordance with the recommendations, one MENA FACTIF, our country carried out a participatory national risk assessment. This self-assessment enabled us to clearly identify the strengths and weaknesses of our systems for combating money laundering and the financing of terrorism. Finally, the President of the National Assembly, Dileita Mohammed Dileita, received the resident representative of the World Bank for Tufol on Thursday. The meeting between the President of the National Assembly and the representative of the World Bank took place in the National Assembly in the presence of the Secretary General Ismail Gulal and the Director of the Cabinet Idris Mohammed Ahmed. The talks focused on ways and means of consolidating friendly relations and cooperation between the two institutions. The Speaker of Parliament, Dileita Mohammed Dileita, assured his guests of his fuel availability during his mission. The representative of the World Bank in Djibouti said she was honored to meet the Speaker of Parliament and thanked him for his warm welcome. Following an emergency meeting held in Saudi Arabia, in Saudi city of Jeddah, the organizations of the Islamic cooperation strongly condemned the blatant targeting by the Israeli occupation forces in the Al-Baptist Ahli Arabi Hospital in Gaza Strip, calling for the blockade to be lifted. Civilians protected. The final declarations of the meeting also called for an immediate end to the Israeli aggressions against the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip, which has a population of around 2.5 million. The organization, which has 57 members countries, urged the international community to provide humanitarian medical emergency aid to supply water and electricity, and to immediately open safe humanitarian corridors to deliver urgent aid to the Gaza Strip. The OIC also held Israeli fully responsible for the plight of civilians and Gaza Strip and the real tragedy they face under the bombardments, sieges, and starvations, which no electricity, food, and drinking water is while being forced to abandon their homes. At the plenary sessions, the final plenary sessions of the 217 sessions of UNESCO Executive Board held yesterday, the ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti and permanent delegate to UNESCO and representative of the Executive Board, Ayed Moussad Yahye, who is also the Dean of the African and Arab Diplomatic Corps in France, drew the board's attention to the guilty silence in the faces of barbarism is taking place before our very eyes in these houses built for peace. He was astonished that the smallest gestures, minister silence, had not been made at UNESCO. This vibrant player for the humanity that we all possess within us was fully accepted and gave everyone the opportunity to speak out in the support of the just Palestinian cause. This intervention, which was noticed and appreciated, demonstrates, if proof were needed, our country's position and which is part of a vision and which is makes its voice heard for the just cause of our Palestinian brothers within the decision-making bodies of the United Nations system. Our ambassador also took the floor to express Djibouti's official positions on the Palestinian questions in the face of the aggressions and collective punishment that saw the hospital massacred. He said, "I thank you for the excellent way in which you are guiding us and deliberations, and I thank you, the councils, for agreeing with us on the request for a minute of silence in the name of our humanity." The ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti and permanent delegate to UNESCO, representative to the UNESCO board, Ayed Moussad Yahye, hammered that my delegation aligns itself with the words of Kuwait on behalf of the Arab group, and also wishes to add that in this time silence is complicit and guilty. Silence kills. I cannot, from a philosophically human Cartesian point of view, accept putting on the same level the largest army in the region against a group, the occupiers against the occupied, the right of self-defense against deliberate massacres of civilians, the murder of journalists, 2.2 million people in a strip that everyone calls on an open-air prison, collective punishments in Gaza. Djibouti condemns in the strongest possible term the savage of bombing of the Al-Muadani hospital in Gaza, which is a crime against humanity. In this house of consciences, Djibouti, from these rooms of UNESCO, reminds us that we must not forget and we must always remember that this is a question of occupation. We call for an immediate halt to hostility and for aid to be allowed to reach civilians. The Republic of Djibouti urges serious and decisive international actions to ensure the immediate protection of innocent civilians and to compel the occupying state to put an end to its brutal aggressions and devastating war against the Gaza Strip. A war that is a shameful blot on the faces of humanity. Finally, Djibouti stressed that the only way to establish the lasting peace in the Middle East is to reach a just comprehensive solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Egypt has confirmed that humanitarian aid will be allowed into the Gaza Strip. Joe Biden has announced on Wednesday evening that the Egyptian president had agreed to to allow it up to 20 trucks to cross the border, but the convoys should not be able to enter the enclaves before Fridays while the roads are repaired. It is an announcement that has been expected for several days. Israel has given the go-ahead for the delivery of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. 20 lorries full of medicines, food, and water that were waiting for the Egyptian borders will be able to travel this week to the south of the enclaves. This news comes on the heels of the Joe Biden's visit to the Hebrew state, which was subsequently approved by Cairo. The same day, the American president called for the de-escalations after the conciliations of a summit between the various leaders of the Middle East country. Israel has agreed that humanitarian aid can begin to be delivered from Egypt to Gaza, but let's be clear, if Hamas hijacks and steals the aid, it will have demonstrated once again that it does not care about the well-being of the Palestinian people, said Joe Biden at the press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in Tel Aviv on Wednesday. The death toll following a huge explosion at Al-Ahli Hospital has now risen to 471, according to the local authorities. The American president said that the Hebrew state was not responsible and that EU was not responsible. And the closures of the regional workshop on the memory of the world programs, the National Committee of the French-speaking countries taking part in the regional workshop of the memory in the world programs organized by UNESCO in collaboration with the National Agency for the Promotion of Culture visited Djibouti's so-called memorial site on Wednesday, 18 October, at the end of the workshop. These included the Djibouti Ega Dam Memorial, a museum retracing the country's colonial and historical past, as well as Djibouti's National Library and Archives, guided tours and full immersions that allowed the president of the National Committee of the 12 French-speaking African countries to immerse themselves in the history of Djibouti in its struggle for independence, but also in the ways and means to put into the practices to safeguard and preserve the historical and cultural heritage. As a reminder, that the Memory of the World program is a UNESCO initiative that has been in place since 1992, involving the participation of several countries through committee, and aims to protect, preserve, and promote access to the documentary heritage of humanity. This year, Djibouti was the host country for the regional workshop. To this end, a closing evening was held at the Scal International Hotels for the benefit of the workshop participants. The Minister of Youth and Culture, Hiba Momin Asowe, who in her speech stressed the importance of preserving and promoting the documentary heritage of humanity. In an historic moment of international cooperation, the Republic of Djibouti, through its Minister of Finance and Economy, Ilyas Moussa Dawali, and Chinese Cement Against Giants Smart Industry Technology, today formalized an unshakable partnership for the future. The agreement signed at the unofficial ceremony marks the success of a collaboration that began in 2019 to transform the Ali Sabir cement factory into the sustainable and thriving operation. The Ali Sabir cement plant is operational and aims to meet the growing demand for cement in the region. This partnership is a prime example of what international cooperation can achieve when it is based on the long-term commitment. At the signing ceremony of this historic agreement, representative of the both party, the Minister of Finance and the CEO of the company, stressed the importance of maintaining strong bilateral relations between China and Djibouti. They also announced the memorandum of understanding aimed at further strengthening their partnership and ensuring a sustainable future for the plant. It is worth noting that since the contract was signed in 2019, a series of significant milestones have been achieved. Activity and essential equipment, installations of electrotechnical equipment, and installations of the new plant. The chairman of Ports and Free Zone Authority, Abubakar Omar Haddi, made a long-awaited visit to the coastal city of Yantai, located southeast of Beijing in the province of Shandong, with a population of 8 million and a GDP approaching 1 trillion yen. Yantai is a major economic player in China. Upon his arrival, Mr. Hadji was warmly welcomed by the mayor of Yantai, Mr. Zhang Deyan, alongside the mayor, the director of the and vice president, vice chairman of the Wenhu Chemical Group, had a fruitful meeting with the Hadji, paving the ways for promising discussions. The meeting between the chairman and the mayor focused on the twining partnership between the cities of Alta and Yantai. The inter-city collaborations could pave the way for significant cooperation in a number of areas, including trade, cultures, and education. In addition, the two parties discussed the exciting opportunity for industrial companies from Yantai to set up in Djibouti's free zone, an initiative that could boost economic exchanges between the two regions. Abubakar Omar Haddi then had a highly productive meeting with the vice president of the Wenhuan Chemical Group. During this meeting, the vice president expressed his intention to use 2.5 million tons of salt per year as a starting point for the production of chemical products. Within the framework of coordination of the actions and state, the Prefecture of Djibouti City proceeded to the launching of the first periodic meeting of the corporations and the concentrated services of the state. The meeting took place at the Djibouti Prefecture and was chaired by the city prefect with the participation of several public service managers, namely the OVD, ADR, and Arulos, Civil Protection and Sanitation Department. The aim of the meeting was to establish a synergy and a cooperative spirit to carry out collective reflections in the general interests and to ensure the coherence of sectoral public actions and guarantee continuity and coherence in the implementations of development policies. To this end, a number of issues were raised, including the cleanliness of the city and road safety, the state of urban roads, and the fight against the sale of drugs and crimes. All these issues were discussed at the meetings and with a view to finding solutions and implementing the main objectives, which is to coordinate all the activities of the state services in the capital. The consultation meeting will be held periodically every fortnight under the chairmanship of the prefect of Djibouti. The prefect of the city specified that it is important to have a spirit of cooperation and collaboration of various state departments to carry out the actions of the concentrated services. Following in the footsteps of their fellow students in their first group from 14 to 21 October 2023, the students in the second group for the Lycée of Excellence in Djibouti began their immersion course at the three prestigious and benchmark lycées, namely the Lycée Louis Le Grand in Paris and Lycée Camille Guérin in Poitiers and Lycée Henri Poincaré in Nancy. The Lycée d'Excellence of Djibouti were divided into several preparatory classes according to their specialties and benefited for a scheme involving parts of the French and Djiboutian students with the aim of sharing and mutually enriching exchanges. During their one-week placement in France, the Djibouti students from the Lycée d'Excellence were able to access reference works from the library and teaching material specific to the preparatory schools. Our students also benefited from the modern physics laboratory equipment made available to them by the host school. So they took part in the practical experiments supervised by associations professor, which enriched by their understandings of the theoretical concept studied in class. In addition to the lessons and lab sessions, the students were able to benefit from the invaluable advice from the French teacher and examinations for engineering school, business school, and higher normal schools. On Wednesday, 11 October 2023, a simulations exercise took place in Djibouti Palace Kempinski. They simulated the effects concerning an outbreak of fires on the first floor in the hotel's training room, to be precise and to be as close as possible to reality. The employees of the Hotel Kempinski had not been informed of the exercise quickly. The employees trained by the fire brigade went to the site of the disasters to the fire and to carry out the reconnaissance, and that evacuated the staff until the arrivals of the Djibouti fire brigade. Once on site, the fire brigade took over, and by evacuating the victims, automatic such as simulations undoubtedly helps to improve the operational capacity of the fire brigade, and also aims to fire brigade operational capabilities to assess their abilities. The event required the deployment of material resources as a fire engines accompanied by a large automatic and 2 ambulances. Since October 20th, the town of Dakhil has been in alert because of the large-scale joint operations orchestrated by the prefecture of Dakhil, hand in hand with the regional councils and supported by the local marshal, under the cover of the decree in forces. A ruthless crackdown was launched to put an end to the wandering of animals, particularly sheep and goats, who take pleasure in adorning the streets of Dakhil town centers with their charming creations. In the course of these unequivocal interventions, hundreds of animals were rounded up and transferred to the Dakhil Livestock Park, where they now receive proper care and adequate food. The owners were warned unequivocally to comply with the decrees enforced on pain of penalties, with a view of returning their animals. During this operation, hordes of animals were dislodged and then transported to the Dakhil Livestock Park. During this unequivocal intervention, hundreds of animals were rounded up and transferred to the outset and urged to comply with the decree in forces, with a view of collective operations which take place relentless as part of the uncompromised efforts of the presence, the hygienists of the Dakhil region. For the international scene, our searches, 2 people arrested and one wolf theory favorite for searches were carried out by investigators on Tuesday, and 2 people were arrested as part of the investigation into the attacks that left 2 people dead in Brussels. Federal prosecutor Frédéric Van Leven announced at a press conference on Tuesday afternoon the suspect who died in the morning after being shot was spotted shortly before 8 o'clock by witnesses and by drinking establishment of Shakespeare. Local police officers attended the scene, and during the intervention, shots were fired by the police and the suspect was shot dead. Also, the emergency services attended to resuscitate him before he was pronounced dead at 9:38 a.m., according to the details given by the public prosecutor. And this is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.